So, in 2016, Pokemon Sun and Moon were my favorite games to come out in 2016. And now, a year later, in the following year, Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, their follow up games, are now my number 3 of 2017. It's not really a mark of how bad Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon are, but a mark of how quality the games of 2017 are of 2016. And that's just enough. But this game is still good enough to be number 3 of this year. I want you all to remember that instead of, dismantling this game for being 2 places lower than its prior iterations were. This game is still great. And oh boy, I'm kind of sad I have to say that. So yeah, this game had a lot of hate when it was first announced. A lot of people thought the game was coming either too soon, only year after the previous game, or people being confused that this game would be on the 3DS, not the Switch. It was a bit of an odd situation, especially considering the fact they called this game an alternate take on the event instead of saying it was a sequel or just a third version. And that confused a lot of people. But I honestly think a lot of people just forgot what a third version of a Pokemon mainline game was, especially considering we hadn't had a straightforward one since, no, since, well, Platinum. And honestly, everyone just wanted a next generation Pokemon game on a Switch by this point. But it was unrealistic for a mainline game to just suddenly generate on the Switch when they weren't done with this generation yet. And the fact that the news that this, you know, the fact that the news on this game was very sparse didn't really help its, post pre-release hype. Overall, the game had a lot of things going against it. But I'm happy to say, the game is great. It's fun. It's fine. It's a really great Pokemon game. Let me tell you what it is. If you play Sun and Moon, then you'll be fairly familiar with stuff going on in these games. Honestly, this is, as I said earlier, a third version game similar to Yellow, Emerald, Crystal, Platinum. It's just, some minor things have been changed to make the story feel a bit newer. With the major plot change this time is Necrozma, as he's sort of a major threat. Well, it's sort of a major threat in the background menacing all of Alola, waiting to steal all the light. I'll say this, I do like this as a plot point, but it's something that isn't really touched much upon the main game overall. It's just something in the background until you get towards the very end game, as character motivations and whatnot have been changed to fit in this new story element. In the end, it's still a very personal story for the various characters, with the bigger threat than just the Ultra Beast from last game. Now, what else is new with this game? Well, move tutors are back. I love having move tutors back, as they were something that I missed in Sun and Moon. Being able to expand your Pokemon's move roster with moves it can't normally learn. And a new minigame is involved, Mantime Surf, which is actually pretty great if you ask me. But more importantly, it's a quick way to build up BP. BP that you can use for the move tutor. I mean, the battle tree is great and all, but it's kind of a pain in the ass as the damn thing is designed to literally be a slog to grind through, as they use Pokemon that are stronger, at least in terms of type development, than yours. And so building BP through that is a major pain in the ass. But Mantine Surf is a good way to circumvent that, as well as an easy way to grind up BP so that you can get moves as well as the Mega Stones from the move tutors and sellers who you take BP. There are a few more expanded areas, and the totem Pokemon and trials have been reworked at least just a little bit to make the battles a bit more challenging in some cases, but possibly easier if you can do them right. The new Z moves they introduced are also pretty great and cool looking. I know the Lycanroc exclusive Z move will get fairly popular considering its ability to clear the field of terrain effects, especially considering how popular the Tapu are as, in the meta. One thing I will say is that a small change happens to the various characters. Lily's a lot more confident, How's given a slight bit of depth, even Guzma is given a little bit more to do with himself. And Lusamine isn't as amoral as she was in the previous games. Again, there's just slight bits and changes to the various characters and whatnot across the entire game to make it feel different, but still very familiar. And of course, how could I forget the best thing to celebrate 20 years with the Pokemon with? Rainbow Rocket. Seriously, Rainbow Rocket is sort of like the Delta episode, an extra story at the end of the game, where Team Rocket, well, now Rainbow Rocket, slips in and takes over the Aether Foundation alongside every evil boss that's been up to date. Except for Team Skull and Teammate and Aether Foundation evil teams. This segment's a giant fan link with even the puzzles reminiscent of older games. And hard as hell boss fights. I mean, seriously, this is a challenge if you've ever wanted a challenge in a Pokemon game. These guys are packing legendary Pokemon and high-level critters, with Mega Evolutions and whatnot being fairly prevalent. So, this is a little pack of challenges, and if you're unprepared to go in for this, you might end up getting your ass kicked. Of all things they add to the game, this is literally the best thing, and I honestly do love playing through it. Overall, this is reportedly the last mainline Pokemon game to be on the 3DS, and as that is the case, I will say this is a worthy last title for the system. It's great, it's fine, but if you've recently played through Sun and Moon, you might be a little bit of burnout on Alola. And that's game for someone who's played through Sun and Moon a total of 5 separate times. Well, not each game individually, but I mean each game as a whole. So, it's a fine game, a fun experience, but maybe it might not be the best thing to do to go straight into this one after finishing, Sun and Moon again. So you don't get tired of the sunny old islands of Alola. But it's a fun time and a worthy end to Generation 7. If this is the end of the generation anyway, then I do, honestly say this is a good end. And we'll talk more about Gen 7 as a whole another time, but let's just say this game is great. To state the obvious once again, this has been a really great year for Nintendo, and part of that was the unexpected. I was never expecting another Xenoblade game that came so soon. More importantly, I wasn't expecting one to come out within the release year of the Switch. But all of a sudden, here comes Xenoblade Chronicles 2, a direct sequel to Xenoblade Chronicles, which, again, is something I wasn't really expecting. And I won't explain how these two games are connected or how exactly it is a sequel, but it's very much connected to the first game, but just in a very loose way. The plot, which because it's a JRPG, the plot's the most important thing, follows Rex, a salvager in the world of Alres, a world literally built on the backs of giants known as Titans. Humans live on their backs as they exist, in a sort of harmony as the Titans exist as landmasses for humans to ride upon, live their lives, build their cities upon, and whatnot. With only one thing separating them, the only thing below them being the depths of the cloud sea below. Rex eventually gets a job, and, well, it's very shady, and he finds a legendary weapon known as the Aegis, which is a legendary blade. In this instance, blades are humanoid creatures who can produce weapons that people can use in combat for magical abilities and whatnot. And thus, he becomes the driver of the Aegis, which essentially a driver is a blades wielder. Now Rex, along with the girl Pyra, who is the legendary Aegis, have to head to the land of Elysium to find a way to save their dying world. I know that plot sounds very basic, especially for a JRPG, very anime-esque. And in fact, the entire thing is very much a very large-scale adventure anime. And, well, that's what's great about it. It's not really trying to be anything different from what it is. And speaking of that adventure, it's a grand old time. The locales you see across your journey exploring the game are amazing, similar to every Xenoblade Chronicles game to date. And this is a world literally built on the backs of giants, and each of the environments you'll encounter are indeed magnificent locales, filled with plenty to look at, plenty to explore, and a wide variety of designs to keep you interested, and monsters to keep you on your toes. But for as great as this game is, there are a number of things that it seems everyone has issues with, so let's go over one of those things right quick. A lot of people have issues with the game's character designs, saying that Rex's outfit looks stupid, and Pyra, as well as another character, Dahlia's chests are too big and her outfits are too revealing. I have a honestly particular rule about this when it comes to outfits for fictional characters in fictional settings. And as long as the outfits make mechanical sense in their world, I don't have an issue with it. Rex being a salvager, aka a diver, and honestly a poor one at that, it makes sense that he would go around wearing the loose bits of his diver outfit, mainly because those are probably the only clothes he owns. It does make a lot of sense even though it does look kind of dumb at times, it does look actually good in motion. Another thing is people don't like the character designs because they look too anime-esque, and yeah, it's anime-esque. And if you're going to worry about boob sizes, have you ever seen Icon Club? once you've gone there and gone back to anything else, it all looks tame. Then there's, of course, the voice acting. English voice acting is fine, it gets the job done, it's serviceable. There are a few characters that are really great, but a lot of characters that aren't as great as they could be, with an example of the latter being Rex's voice actor. I honestly feel he's a bit too restrained in the role. There are a lot of scenes where he should be screaming his heart out, and, well, it just feels he can't get fully into it. He either can't or won't go fully into the role, like Domon Kashu or someone of that quality. And honestly, it's a major pain, but again, it's something that you can easily deal with. And I do like the return of the more British voice acting that they used in the original game that was surely lacking in X. But if you can't really take the dub, then you can easily download the free Japanese voice track and just enjoy the game with subtitles. It just makes the game a cluster of noise against human enemies in the middle of battle. Switching gears to talk about battle, I honestly do love this battle system. It's a more enhanced version of the system that they use for, again, the original Xenoblade Chronicles as well as X. If you have an issue with auto attack, well, you won't like this game because you're doing a lot of that. But again, like in the previous games, the things about your position, where you're attacking, the special abilities that you can pull off, as well as a wide variety of weapons that you get from having different blades, as well as pulling off magnificently beautiful combos on enemies. It's honestly a fun time once you fully get into the system and fully understand what it is you're doing and how you're doing it. The game does break apart little bits of tutorial here and there, so you're never really overwhelmed by all the stuff on screen. You're just given just enough to get to understand it, and just enough that you can fully enjoy your experience. It is a fun way to whack up the damage to take out large groups of enemies, which you'll be facing quite a lot of. But the combat system has its chunky moments, and yeah, it can be annoying at times, especially early on. It's something that you grow to learn, and honestly, once you do learn it, is a really intricate and enjoyable system, and I can understand why a lot of the promo stuff they had focused on explaining the battle system, because that's something that you can just automatically know just by looking at it, sorry to say. Another major issue, or major minor issue I have, are rare blades. You get rare blades at random when you open up core crystals, or if you do certain side quests. But the thing about rare blades is that rare legendary core crystals often will spit out just commons that are of higher quality. It is honestly pretty annoying, considering that rare blades often always come jam-packed with their own quest lines, voice acting, stuff like that. So it is kind of a shame that you can't really get a lot of them without doing a bit of grinding to get a bunch of core crystals to unlock them. It is a major pain in the ass, especially considering the story significance that rare blades do have at certain points in the game, but it's nothing that you can honestly live with. And finally, one thing I do want to mention is the soundtrack. Again, this year has been a really great year for soundtracks, and like the original Xenoblade Chronicles, this game has a really great soundtrack. Special mention goes to the track Drifting Souls, a song that plays during certain major story events. That might as well be the game's main theme if it is or isn't, for how many times you end up hearing the damn thing across the playthrough. I would recommend one more track, but it does involve a bit of spoilers, so I'll just take my word, it's great you'll know it when you hear it, and it'll take a while to listen to all 120 songs when you get a chance to, because they're all pretty good. Overall, I do have to say this is a really great follow-up to the original Xenoblade as well as X, and another must-have RPG on the Switch, especially if you do love JRPGs, and again, the added portability adds another plus to it all. So yeah, forget what the haters say, love this game because it's actually pretty damn great. So, the year has brought, as you can see, a number of really great games. So what does this game have to be for me to realize it will rank not only really high, but it would automatically become first place on my first playthrough of it? Well, that's something I realized with Persona 5 when I first played it, and while I did miss a lot of the hype train as I had only a few years ago gotten into the Persona series, I do have to say, I'm fully on board now. I am, as I said earlier, a late fan to the Shin Megami Tensei series that Persona has spun off from. But I've grown to deeply love this franchise, having started with Persona 3 when I picked it up on the PSN. I snatched up Persona 4 Golden when I got a Vita, and I eventually paid pretty much most of the spin-off games as I eagerly anticipated Persona 5 as it was close to release. But this game still managed to blow my mind when I finally got my chance to play it, and I love it for that. The game just exudes this style that's in literally almost every aspect of the games, from the menu to the combat system to the characters. This game is just steeped in the best way possible with style. Speaking of combat, this is quite possibly the most fast and fluid way to do a turn-based JRPG that I've ever played. The fights don't really drag on if you know what you're doing, and with the score, you'll easily get into the rhythm of a fight and just breeze through it. There isn't really much need to do much grinding, even though you'll end up doing it anyway. Speaking of the groove of the soundtrack, well, again, this has been a really great year for soundtracks because this is, again, one of the best ones of the year. With such songs such as Rivers in the Desert, Last Surprise, and of course the meme-worthy Wake Up, Get Out There, and of course Life Will Change. There are a number of really great soundtracks here, a number of really great songs here, and of course you can get all of these off Amazon. As for the plot, you are a standard anime protagonist number 5 who gets shipped off to Tokyo after an incident and forced to stay there for a year. From there you discover supernatural powers and you must use them to help save the world, standard fare for JRPGs. But when you get down to the game, you'll be doing three base things when you play the game. For having a fulfilling daily life, infiltrating various palaces, and exploring mementos. During the daily life aspect, you'll be doing various tasks from interacting with the various characters to increase their social links or confidant ranks, as well as your own personal stats, using various activities to get various bonuses. The confidant system is very similar to the social link system, but with added benefits such as battle bonuses, discounts of various types, and the ability to switch party members mid-battle. This is by far the most important ability you can get in the game. Don't miss out on it. The combat system is fun and enjoyable, and characters you interact with all have their own little stories and pressures that push them to the fringes of society so that you can help them, find their way back. Now, palaces are basically the dungeons from Persona 4, but unlike those dungeons, these are structured maps, not really randomized dungeons. A big thing in this game is, being a thief, sneaking in, using some minor stealth bits, and so having a randomized dungeon really wouldn't work with that as an ideal. So they actually made a dungeon for the dungeons. Dungeons themselves are fun to explore, and you can always tell just a little bit about the target or the master of the dungeon just by the way it's designed and looks. And then finally we have mementos, for those of you who did miss having randomized dungeons. Basically, because the dungeons in the game aren't revisitable after you clear them, when you deal with the boss of the area, you can explore mementos. Mementos is basically similar to the dungeon Tartarus from Persona 3, being a massive randomized dungeon that you can explore with parts locked off until you reach those certain story beats. And of course you'll be taking on various small jobs there, taking on enemies for minor bonuses as well as for a few confidants. All the little game mechanics just all work into each other to form this cohesive whole. They harmonize in a really great way that I don't see much in many video games, all emphasizing the main theme of the game as well as making it actually fun to play, unlike certain games and even some of the past Persona games. Now there is something important that you will see on the loading screen. A small message in the game is telling you to take your time. That is a very important thing. This is a full, long JRPG in all of its glory. And it's not something that you can honestly speed run through because you'll miss something important or a little bit of the game that can make or break the playthrough for you. And as such, again, you shouldn't skip it because it will be. This is a game where even all the smaller things can make or break the game. Not in a technical way, but in a personal experience way. You might miss out on something fun that might end up turning you away from the game. Overall, this is, again, the best game I've played all year. The best game I've played probably in some time, and a game that I've played 3 times just because I wanted to. In a year with so many great games, and this being a full-length JRPG. I've played this game no less than 3 times in the year 2017. That should tell you something about how highly I hold this game, because it is a fun, full experience, and I want everyone who has a PS4 or PS3 or just wants to take a curious look at it to play this game, because it's just the magnum opus of the Persona franchise up to this point. And I'm honestly curious to see what they'll do if they make Persona 6. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed the list. Those were my top 13 games of the year. I broke it up into multiple videos so it'll be easier to digest instead of watching one massive long video. If you want to see more stuff, I have a lot more videos. There should be some videos on the screen coming up. I do also have last year's list, which is more of a traditional style list, which is one big video. I'm going to definitely use a different format from here on out. I hope you like this new format I'm working with for the Dark Library. If you're new here, I have a lot of things coming down the pipeline for the year. And if you want to stay in touch with me, I have a Twitch, which I need to get back to using a bit more. I have a Twitter account. I have, which, I'm practically almost always on by this point. I also do some writing. I have a DeviantArt, and I have a Tapas in case you want to read some stuff. Enough of the same self-promotion. I really hope you've all had a really great year. Hope you've had some really great games to play, like Christmas having passed and all that stuff. And also, I want to ask you all a question. What are some of your favorite games? Did they make it on the list and I mentioned them at all? What are some of your favorite games to come out in 2017? What are some games that you're looking forward to in 2018? I am honestly curious. I want to know. I want to see what everyone's talking about. See what's out there on the horizon. And see if there's some games that might make it onto next year's list. I mean, this year's list, which will come out early next year. I do this in a weird way, because there's a lot of games coming out, and I have to play them all, well, most of them. Either way, yeah, it's been a good year for video games last year, and I'm honestly looking forward to what this year has to entail for gaming. Again, I hope it won't be, down the toilet a bit because of all the stuff that got pulled last year with Destiny 2 and EA and all that stuff. But, I'm honestly curious to see what we have coming up. So let's all hope that this year's a really great year. Let's all, all come together, hope that this year's a really great year for games. Hope we get a lot of quality titles, and I hope to see you all next time when I do the anime list. I also want to talk a bit about that. I also want to talk a bit more about anime this year. So I'll see you all next time.